Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? It is your Caped Crusader, Cody, and I'm here with our good friend, Jon Westhoff of Part-Time Comix. We're going to be talking about his Kickstarter for Drumsticks of Doom issue #1. Welcome to the stream today, Jon. How are you doing? And give us a little bit of a backstory about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we crossed paths on the wide world of the internet, and I was able to come on. Yeah, I'm Jon Westhoff. I'm the publisher, writer, letterer for Part-Time Comix. We've been publishing under this title for about 2 years. This is our 4th book, Drumsticks of Doom, in the last year. But I previously had about a decade's worth of publishing experience and writing and lettering with a company called Kickstart Press. So I've been in the game for about 12 years.
So you said you had a couple other previous works that you've been involved with. What type of comics were those, and how did those vary from Drumsticks of Doom?
Well, I feel like we've been able to put out a lot of varied products, titles. I think that's something that I'm trying to do intentionally. You know, I have a lot of different types of stories I want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
I think if people read my titles, I definitely feel like I'm honing into a writing style. I mean, I would describe my style as more slice of life, emo. That's kind of what you're going to get from me. You're going to get a lot of emotional moments and talking heads. That's kind of just the style that I write in. But thankfully, I work with some amazing artists who remind me, you know what, can't have a guy talking for 20 pages. You need to have someone punch someone in the head or something. Yeah. So I do that as well. But we have Child Possession Services was our first title with my longtime collaborator, previous co-publisher with Kickstart Press, Bob Gar-Ornelas. Co-created character with myself. Basically, the short pitch is she's a social worker for children who are or have been possessed.
Mm-hmm.
So the short pitch is, if possessions were common around the globe, what would happen? Well, of course, the government would make a poorly run agency with burned out social workers.
You know, I think you pretty much hit that right on the head too.
I am a social worker by day, so it does have a lot of
kudos to that, because that is a hard position to be in. I'm almost positive, like seeing a lot of like the heartbreak and stuff that you have to go through with certain cases and stuff. You know, kudos to that, because that has to be pretty taxing on you.
Yeah, it can be, but it can be rewarding, and you know, it's career I chose, you know, very early on in life. So I'm certainly privileged to be able to go out there and help people. And then, you know, I said, after years of people telling me write what I know, I said, you know what, then I'm going to write about being a social worker, but got to give it some sort of, you know, cool spin. So of course,
cool. So you were able to translate that job history into a comic.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of it in there, and I'm hoping to do more stories with Bob. That was our first title. We put out a 40-page one-shot last year. Had a ton of success on Kickstarter, one of our most successful ever. It is a complete story. We're kind of trying to tell more one-shot stories because we understand that with publishing, there could be some time between issues. People might come and go from your series, so you want to give them some meat to take away.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're running a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, any sort of campaign, when you start running into like your 3rd or 4th or 5th issue, having to have backers go back and get the previous issues can sort of be troublesome, you know, trying to find those issues or trying to buy them all at once to catch up. So the one-shots definitely seem to be a pretty viable idea. Let's go ahead and start talking about Drumsticks of Doom issue #1. Your Kickstarter campaign has 9 hours to go, but holy smokes, you are just smashing it, almost double your goal. Congratulations on that. How's that going for you? What are you looking to do as soon as this campaign ends?
Well, I appreciate, you know, the support and talking about it today. You're the first person I've talked to since we officially hit over the mark, so I really appreciate that.
That's awesome, dude.
You know, we passed the goal in 6 days. You know, it was 3,800 was the basic goal, and you know, in self-publishing, there's always your goal, and then there's the real goal. You know, there's a lot of cost that comes with making a comic of this quality. And you know, I want to make sure my artists get compensated. I want to print the book as best quality as I can. I want to print as many copies as I can, so I don't have to keep going back to print. So the real goal was $6,000, and I wasn't sure if we'd make it there. I've never raised that much money on crowdfunding. You know, I've done 11 or 12 campaigns now, and had some ups and downs. Never had this over 200 backers.
That's awesome, though. Hell yeah.
You know, Dan is an amazing artist. He's also been in comics for 15 years now. He has an amazing track record. He is just a great person to collaborate with. So I thought maybe teaming us up would, and we had a good product, and we had I feel like an easy pitch, an easy sell. I felt like it would get there, but you just never know. Times are crazy in the world. Not everybody's able to give to creative things. And, I'm just so grateful that we reached that final goal, because that means that beyond this issue, Dan and I can tell more stories in the universe. And now we've got, some funds to make that happen.
That's awesome. So universe, you're talking about an expanded world. What type of world building are we going to start seeing within the Drumsticks of Doom world and universe?
Well, my hope, I have kind of 3 arcs planned out. And again, trying to be reasonable with that. I don't want to do, I know that Dan and I are not going to do a 100-issue series. We'll be 80 years old by that time that happens. So I want to tell, like we just by getting to this goal, we've been able to expand the first issue by 6 pages. That's going to bring some of the lore from the heavy metal music that we're using in the series and plant some seeds for future issues. So we've got some different things planned. I see it as kind of 3-ish issue arcs. So I'm thinking a 9 or 10 issue series would be a nice run for this universe. And then I'd like to eventually pull some of the other characters that I've been creating in the past and kind of plant those seeds as well.
I got you. So heavy metal, let's talk, what are some of your favorite heavy metal bands? Before we start really diving into this comic, let's talk about the music that kind of inspires you, to bring the rock.
Well, yeah, I'm glad to talk about that, because that is a huge influence on this. I love music.
Are you a drummer as well?
I am a drummer. I've played for about 25 years. I'd say I'm in retirement. I mostly just goof around to show the kids, my kids, and try to get them interested. But I was in a band for about 20 years, on and off in different bands, and never reached, never got to play big stadiums or world tours or anything like that. But, it was always a part of my life since I was like 14 years old. The first time
you can't take the feeling off the stage, regardless if it's big or small, that feeling performing, it doesn't matter how big that is. It's always right there in your heart.
Absolutely. And those of us who play music, who really love music, those people, when you get out of the car, you have to sit, you stop in the car, you got to sit and let that song finish before you get out of the car. You know how those kind of people are. We just love music. There's always a tune in our head. And there's so many amazing comics influenced by music. And that's what I wanted to do with this. So some of my favorite bands of all time, my favorite band of all time, they go back and forth, but it's really Primus and the Talking Heads. So I definitely lean more towards, alternative music, but, heavy metal. I love local band Macabre. I love rock like Dio, Sabbath, all kinds of different kinds of metal. Converge, Killswitch Engage. I like, run the gamut as far as heavy metal music is concerned.
It's funny too, because like we were talking about earlier, I do a lot of Twitch streaming, and my Twitch stream name is actually Job for a Cody, which is like a death metal band, death metal, heavy metal band. So, I mean, what better forces to collide than us,
I'm not gonna lie, I was, thinking that when we got a backer, not to peek behind the scenes, he did back the book. I was like, oh man, is this like a famous band or something?
You're like, oh no, it's just the dude that's gonna interview me.
Nah, that's fine. It's all good.
So, we start off by saying and establishing, and rightfully so, Black Sabbath, not the Beatles, became the world's most famous band. I think so much would have changed given that, with how much the Beatles influence, like seeing that influence caused by Black Sabbath would have been like a whole different world. So we're introduced to Lena, and she's always late to band practice. And then all of a sudden demons arrive. Let's go ahead and break that down. I did try to dive into what was available on the Kickstarter, but of course you're going to have a lot more world building and stories about Lena. So what inspired you to start with heavy metal? Like, why did you choose to go with a band and demons? I mean, demons and metal go hand in hand, but was that formula easier for you to write?
I think I started with the story at first. The story was really about my waiting years of being in a band and kind of thinking about that transition. And I said, well, now that I'm transitioning into making comics or making music, maybe I need to kind of put that in writing and work through that a little bit. But I kind of sat on that story for a while, wasn't really sure what the universe was or what my for the story was. And then I kind of thought of Lana, and she's kind of coming into young adulthood. She's still in her high school-ish band. She doesn't know what she wants to do. And then I was like, okay, I kind of got this character. But then, really, if you look at the logo is a direct ripoff of the Manowar logo, the great English, over the top heavy metal band. So then I thought, I'm going to make this world where, heavy metal rules. And then I was like, well, there's been some stories like that, like Chuck Beebe's death metal, Metalocalypse was, can't deny that was an influence. Love that cartoon. And then I thought, well, now I'm just kind of riffing off of other people. It wasn't until I really came up with the bigger story that, what does my universe look like that? And then I thought, why would this universe be there? Well, here's what happened. Black Sabbath became the greatest band in the world. No hate thrown towards the Beatles. The Beatles are amazing, but again, when you're in the heavy metal world, you definitely, our God is Black Sabbath. So what would happen to the world, right? All the things that your aunts and uncles told you, your grandparents said, you're going to worship the devil and you're going to summon, all these things if you listen to heavy metal. Well, maybe that actually did happen. But again, I'm kind of more of an emotional writer. I'm more of a slice of life guy. So I kind of made it a little bit more grounded, but still it's got that supernatural element and kind of just your life goes on. You have to live day to day. But how do you deal with it when there's werewolves and there's witches and there's things like that also kind of are in the background somewhere. And that's kind of where the world came from. Once I had the idea of, Black Sabbath kind of changed the world.
So, I noticed it says that they were a two-piece, but in some of the shots from the comic, it showed that they were a full band at one point. Was there a breakup within the band?
So Lana is in two bands, right? So she plays in her not so great high school band with her ex boyfriend, who he just wants to play ripping death metal because that's kind of the popular stuff. And then when he leaves, she has a secondary band. She plays multiple instruments, and then she kind of goes into that. And she's not really confident in showing people that music, but she still wants to make it. Like a lot of us do for ourselves. And again, that's her. That's really the crutch of the story. How is she coping with wanting to make music but not having the confidence, and where does she go?
So what makes Lana a different protagonist from what other ones that comic readers have seen and read in their stories? What drives Lana to be different? And I guess the drawing aspects of her character to anyone that's listening that's kind of on the fence about diving in.
Well, again, my hope is that, I think, people use the term strong female protagonist. My goal is, I'm not a woman. I mean, if people can hear my voice or see me, I have to put that out there. I have to be honest.
It is a good voice, though. It is a good voice.
Thank you. I am not. I cannot assume that role, right? It's just not. That's not how I identify. So it's always a challenge, right? I want to write a realistic character. I want to write somebody that feels real. So I looked at people I know who've played in bands. Women through history who've played in bands. So I'm trying to kind of pull that together as best I can, right? Again, I'm writing outside my role here. So I'm hopeful that people will get that she feels real. I brought in Dan for a reason. Dan still plays in bands. He's a very good guitar player, singer. He writes his own music. I wanted to bring in somebody who understood the musical aspect so we could bring that out as well. And just really, take our history of making music and put that into a comic. How were you in your early, late teens, early 20s when you wanted so bad to have people listen to your music, and how you felt, but you weren't really confident? That's kind of the basis of the character.
Man, as you can see, I play guitar too. I'm always jealous of people who could play and sing. I didn't get gifted best of both worlds, so I just have to strum along, and no one wants to listen to someone just play guitar. You got to do both.
I don't know. I would do backing vocals and drums just for the hell of it, to scream or to have fun. But I really didn't get the gift of anything. I was never quite the drummer I wanted to be. But yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No. I think anybody. I think that's part of this too. Is like we if creation doesn't have to meet other people's standards, you just have to be the best you can be.
That's actually a really good quote right there. I really like that. Like, I used to do vocals back in the day. The heavy metal scream vocals, of course. I never was one for singing. But real quick, let's go ahead and just dive right back. How hard was it writing a female character, though? Like, getting yourself in that role? Did you have to ask questions, get feedback? What went into making this character come alive when you're not used to writing that type of role. That had to be pretty hard.
It was a challenge, and honestly, I mentioned, that we had our previous book, which stars a female protagonist, CPS, and it was really writing that. And I've written some other female characters. They're usually the love interest or the person, maybe not the main character. So this was really, with Connie and now with Lana, it was really the first time I'm diving into making them the main character. So I honestly, after CPS, wanted to step back and say, again, I cannot assume the role of being a woman, but am I putting enough into this? And, I was really raised by my grandmother. My mother was essentially a single mother. She remarried, but, she really raised us kids. And I have an older sister. I've been married for 15 years. So I do feel like I have experience. I do really adore women and hold them to really high esteem. So I hope that, I can take that and put that care into the character and not make it, too much like a heavy-handed man trying to make a female character and not having any kind of thought in it.
Do you think the fact that you hold women in that light is what drove you to make women your protagonist in two of your comics? I know for myself too. I lost my father at an early age, so growing up and seeing your mom as both, father and mother and fulfilling that role, it definitely it puts you in a different state of mind. So I have a lot of respect for that aspect of that. Hearing you say that, I can definitely respect a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's hard to kind of judge and rate yourself, but I do feel like I've always, again, like you said, you just look at the opposite gender differently. Because of how you were raised and what you saw. So I think that was really important. With Lana, it just felt natural. When I thought of the character, I thought of a young woman, trying to struggle with these kind of things. I have to be honest, I wanted to see a woman sing and play drums, so that made sense as well, selfishly. So that was part of the decision. But really, with Connie's character from CPS, that was really my co-creator's suggestion. I came up with the character it was really a joke because my co-creator Bob Gar, he really loves John Constantine, Hellblazer. So I wanted to make a gender bent Hellblazer that, we're going to do this short for this comic he wanted to do. And then he's like, well, I think you really have something here. And what if we made her, we changed her ethnicity, and what if we made that kind of tie into how, well that she works with her power set or these abilities that she has. And he really changed the character and helped me flesh it out. And that was really helpful for me in saying, you know what, I do tend towards comedy. That's always just kind of been my writing style. But, when I'm creating characters, it's important, to put more thought into them, because you don't know how people are going to take that in, when they read it on the other end,
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, though, one band I suggest you should check out, From Autumn to Ashes. The drummer, he drums and he sings. So if you enjoy that type of play style, awesome. It's metal. They're screaming in it. It could definitely jam a little bit. I think you'd like that a lot.
And I appreciate the recommendation. They are a band that was on my radar, but to be honest with you, I did not give them a fair shot, or they're just not in my rotation. But I'll definitely. Yeah,
the drummer, he does the clean vocals. He can sing really good too. And then they have a second vocalist to do the harder vocals. But so for your comic, let's paint the picture a little bit. She's in one band, and then she goes into a second band to fight the spiritual side of things, right? So how is she able to take down the demons and everything? How is this what appears to be a normal human able to go up against just demonic creatures and things, from the nightmares of hell?
Well, that is yet to be revealed, right? That is the crux of the book, where she just goes to the store that she always goes to and picks up these drumsticks that she always buys. And she prefers the thinner sticks because she doesn't play heavy metal. So that upsets her her partner. He prefers the bigger, thicker 5Bs. But
is that the one you prefer?
I was in between, back and forth. I like the jazz style thinner sticks, but they always broke because I played too hard. So I had to eventually switch to the 5B. So that is a little inside drummer joke there. But yes, so she picks them up. Something happens when she plays with them. Why that is? Oh, we'll have to tune in and see. I can't give you all the details, right? But there's definitely something about her in particular.
Yeah, it's so awesome, and I really can't wait to get my hands on this comic. When can people who back this campaign expect to get this comic in their hands?
So for those who are following, comics pretty closely, we are having some issues, as a lot of the world is in a lot of areas. So we are having issues with supply chain. So I did put it for August, but I do anticipate it being done much sooner. So as long as production goes well, I'm hoping to mail them out, in late June, July. But right now, the target is August, and then hopefully by then we'll even be able to announce, issue 2, as we've had a ton of great support.
Awesome.
We've passed all the goals that we set out in this comic. You people like yourself have made their voices heard and said, I want to see more of this universe.
Yeah,
and that's just a great feeling. So I would expect around August-ish, and then we'll see what the end of the year.
So while we're on this, do you want to go ahead and share your campaign, and then I can put it on my screen and we can just go down each tier? Because we do have a couple hours left. I'm going to get this edited probably within the hour, so we'll still have at least probably 7 hours left of your campaign. So if you want to go through each of your tiers, we can give a little bit of a breakdown.
Great. Yeah, so you see, this is the big thing right here. Even if you're watching this after the campaign has ended, we're Part-Time Comics with an X on all social media. Our link tree is Part-Time Comics with an X. You can find us if this is something that excites you. You don't just have to get it through a Kickstarter. We do have some incentives on here, so I hope people can take advantage of that. First and foremost, we were blessed with 2 amazing women, artists who identify as women. Maria Wolf, Kaylin Smith came in clutch. We had some. We needed a great cover, and they just killed it. I gave them very little description, and boy, did they just knock it out of the park.
I really love the one on the right. That is just powerful. The drumsticks up in the air, the guitar, the werewolf smoldering in the corner. Like, I love it.
Yes, and Maria's her nickname is Maria Wolf. She goes by. So obviously, I thought of her. I was like, Dan and I, we're men. We've got a female character as the main character. We need to bring some women into this, get their involvement, and I'm just so happy that they had the time in their schedule. Again, I gave very little. This is actually, again, peek behind the scenes. This is a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek riff on the Man of War Kings of Metal cover. And I just said, instead of holding, the object she's holding a pair of drumsticks and maybe a bass, because she also plays bass. And I said, you're Maria Wolf, so you probably want to add a wolf, right? And she's like, I got this. A couple weeks later, she was like, here it is. Do you want me to change anything? I was like, no.
Nope.
Go to print. and I should mention as well, she does not color her own work. Kaylin does. She got the amazing Mike Spicer colors. The colors are just insane.
So what goes on, like, for the first artist to draw to lay the outlines and the other one to color it? I don't know. I've never been involved in the industry. For me though, like, I would almost want to color my own picture, like, how is it hard to translate that to the colorist to, like, get the colors popping the way the original artist intended?
Well, they have a decent relationship, and I think that shows. He knows what she wants, and they communicate well with each other. You see Kaylin, don't want to downplay that. Also amazing cover. I said, I want Lana playing drums, maybe a wolf. She said, I got it. So she colors her own work, and she does an amazing job. Some people prefer that. I've worked with artists who say, no, I have to color my own lines. I just prefer that. Others, her inks are very defined, so I think that it would be easy.
Yeah.
People with looser pencils would probably be harder. Pencils and inks would be harder to color, I would imagine. I've done very little comic coloring myself, and it is hard. It is an art in itself. So that's why I want to definitely mention Mike here. He did an amazing job with those covers. So so we're off to a great start, right? I do often want to work with my interior artists to do the cover, and we'll definitely have Dan doing some covers down the road. But for this project, again, did want to bring in some female influences. I thought it was important to acknowledge that, and of course they're amazing artists first and foremost. But so the basic tier, you can get Maria Wolf's cover. A lot of people told me, that should be the variant cover. You should be charging more for it. All that kind of stuff. But I feel like that's just such a great image that, we definitely wanted that to be. So that's the main cover. You can also,
Wow, yeah, that's very awesome. I would almost agree with everyone else that definitely is variant cover material.
yeah, and I struggled with variants in general. I've done a couple now. A lot of my peers talked to me about it and said, you're offering a variant cover. People don't have to buy it if they don't want to. It's not the same as my struggles with retailer covers where they have to order 100 copies to get the one. This is like, hey, people can order it if they want, and you charge a couple dollars more to cover the cost.
How what goes into printing that though? Is it going to be hard to print like both? Like, are you printing on demand, or are you waiting until you get the orders, or are you going to print just a certain amount of each?
So part of the reason you're doing a Kickstarter is to kind of know your budget going into printing, and that helps a lot because the more you print, the less they are per unit. And most companies now, they're able to easily print your internals and then put whatever cover you want on there for, a couple dollars more because, they got to, I don't know, take them out, restaple and put them together. So you don't want to do like 50 of them, but if you're doing just 1 or 2 or 3 covers, it's pretty easy nowadays. A lot of these companies really work with people. We work with, 3 or 4 great printers. So if I have a smaller print run, I have a printer that I use. If I have a larger print run, I have a printer that I use. If I have a black and white book, a hardcover book, there's tons of great printing options out there. It's really easier than people think. You just
so, like, just being someone on the outside, like, I never would have considered what all went into this. I think that's kind of like basically how everyone else feels as well. Like, it just seems like there's so much and it's such a complex system, and it's insane to hear just how easy things can be done.
Yeah, and it's funny to hear you say that because, again, I guess old man on the scene, I'm like, well, you email your scripts, you harass the artists and writers, you do it. I'm just kind of used to it now, so it probably is harder than people think, but I'm very grateful, and as we go through here, I think, one thing we should focus on is I haven't even shown Dan's art yet. Probably should have put him at the top of the page, but he's obviously the main driving force in this. I'm not Alan Moore. I'm not a very verbose scripter. I give him, the overview. We've talked about the story. We've talked about characters. He'll text me every once in a while. Hey, I got a question about this. But for the most part, he takes 1 or 2 sentences and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll just make this look awesome. And I'll just make this look awesome. And I said, oh, it's a heavy metal world. So they got to have, flying V's and jagged guitars. He's like, okay, I know exactly what that is. And, again, you see like this image.
Yeah.
He just, nailed it. I'm like, well, we don't have a lot of space on this page, but I do want the full band to be playing. And I
love the way he outlined the session in jagged lines too. Yeah. Instead of like, how everything else was lined.
Just that little touch. He's just a master illustrator. I'm very fortunate that he had the time in his schedule. And Dan and I worked together about 10 years ago. We did a music themed anthology because I was talking to some of the other creators and I realized a lot of us were in bands. And I was like, oh, let's make a music themed anthology. You don't see that too often. So we did 3 volumes of it. It was called Banthology. And Dan did an amazing story called The Beast in Me, which was a lot of the impetus of this story, which was about really himself and struggling with wanting that feeling that you get from playing live music. And that really just stuck with me. And I just knew Dan would be the one to make the story. And Dan and I have been friendly. We see each other at conventions. We talk online. And finally, I was like, you know what? I'm getting old.
You're like, I'm going to make the move.
The Grim Reaper's coming soon. I got to do this now. And he was like, well, I'm wrapping up my long time 21 issue running series Touching Evil. So yeah, I'll probably have some time to do that. And I was like,
match made in heaven. Yeah. That's awesome. It's so awesome when things line up just perfect like that as well.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate to get him. As you can see here, he just, I gave him this. We did the first pages. We tried to pitch it around to some publishers, get people to pick it up. But, we weren't fortunate in that regard. And what we said, we both have experience with self-publishing. Let's just do it ourselves. We can do it exactly how we want. And then if somebody picks it up down the road, to publish the trade paperback or something, that's great. But let's make the comic we want, how we want. So
is that why is that what created Part-Time Comics then? Is wanting to go that route?
Yeah. So I was having trouble with the workload of, working my day job and being a publisher at Kingbone Press. We took on a lot of projects from amazing, friends and peers that we met in the community. But I got to a point where, I was feeling a little bit burnt out with it. But after taking a couple years off, I said, I still want to make comics. I'd like some place to kind of park my ideas. You know what? But I need my own brand to kind of put out there, and that was kind of how, you know, that's part of the name. The reason the name is Part Time Comics is you know, trying to set better limits for myself,
Mm-hmm.
not doing as much. I mean, obviously as a publisher, there's a lot to do, but you know, I kind of set out at the beginning to say, you know what, let's set reasonable expectations, put it out at your pace. Don't take on so much. Be a little bit more selfish in this phase, and just kind of have a place to kind of put your characters and your ideas with my amazing co-creators like Dan.
Yeah, I mean, and setting limits is really important. You said you were a father as well, so I mean, I would almost imagine balancing this life with being a father. It has to be a delicate, you know, you're walking on a tightrope there.
Yeah, it's been a challenge, and that was a big part of, you know, kind of setting better limits for myself. I definitely encourage that in others. Of course, I say that, and we're putting out 5 books this year because, you know, I don't listen to myself, but one of these days I will definitely listen to myself.
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were trying to set this up, and at the time I was just getting wet behind the ears and just looking at just an overwhelming thread of people to contact, and I was trying to figure out a spot. And I myself have kids, so I was trying to figure out a time where I could give you time of day without having to worry about a house full of kids stampeding in on the interview. And very fortunate that you were willing to work with me. I really respected that a lot too. You know, you of course said you know, kids first, which, you know, that as a dad, that's the motto.
No, I definitely I appreciate that life always comes first. I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing wife. I have great kids that you know, behave and do well in school, and you know, I have a mother who lives with us now as well that helps out. You know, there's a lot of things in my life that are fortunate. So when someone else has a struggle, who am I to say, you know, I'm more important, you know, beyond my schedule? You have to be understanding. And I think that's part of why, I think that's part of what makes it easy for people to work with me. You know, I don't, you know, we want to have deadlines, right? We want to meet expectations if I'm fulfilling a Kickstarter or something like that. But I also try to be understanding. People have families, lives, other jobs that they're trying to do. Just trying to survive these days is enough. So why wouldn't we try to be empathetic towards each other? And this creative stuff will happen. And if you give people compassion, you'll get great projects like I'm hoping we're going to put out here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
You see our amazing covers in full size here by the amazing women that did them. And then we have a bunch of other incentives. You see some more great art from Dan. Don't want to downplay that, but Dan, if you know, if you jump in, Dan can do a custom acoustic song for you. He'll record it and send it to you. We have our other Part-Time Comics books. We have a bunch of Dan's books available. Even though this is misleading, we have the drumsticks in here for show. I'm actually doing guitar picks, which, you know, is probably seems ironic, but
you ran out of the drumsticks. You got to take them back. I get it, dude. They break easy.
They're easier to ship is what it really is. And I did look up how to custom print them. They're pretty expensive to print each, but we'll see. If
3D print them?
You can send them to a company and they'll put your logo on it.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted the drumstick. I was like, yeah, but $35 each, that's kind of a lot. But if we keep having the success like we're having, look for those in the future. But we've got stickers, we've got pins. You know, people love pins in the metal scene. I did this homage cover here. That's a Blackest sketch cover. You can have Dan or Kaylin or Maria hire them to sketch on it for you in the future. That seems to be pretty popular. Coasters. Yeah, we've got a ton of good stuff. I believe as of right now, unfortunately, if you're listening here at the end, I think the ones that are available through the Kickstarter, I believe we've sold out of the Kaylin covers.
That's good though, you know.
We might have one left. It is good. But I do feel bad because I would hate for someone to click and really want her cover. But, you know, we did want to make it, you know, exciting and enticing. So it is a very limited run.
Do you think she's going to be involved in the next project? You said you're going to be doing another one after this around August, I believe.
Yeah, Dan and I are going to talk to the other. We're going to talk about where we want to go from here. Now that you know, tonight he and I are talking to do a kind of a celebration stream tonight.
Ooh, let's go. Where are you streaming on?
On Facebook.com/Jon Westhoff. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, and then I'll put that link in the description if you're listening as well, so that way you can check it out.
No, great. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's I've had some trouble streaming to my company page.
Is that your cat?
Is there a cat?
No, your profile picture.
Oh yeah, that's my cat. I forgot it was on my Facebook.
I got, dude. I got a big old Chunkers chilling on top of my couch. He likes to look out the window.
Oh, we got 2 pandemic cats during this time, and they've been a lifesaver. They've really helped us cope in this time. So that's Archie there. Yeah. Yeah. No, we've got some great incentives. We teamed up with Ripcord Records, who's going to put out the soundtrack for the album, which is basically
That's awesome, dude.
Most of the songs are just songs from the creators who are helping make the book. If they've been in bands
so
like myself and Dan.
cool.
But
Is it going to be like a little CD or digital?
only digital through Ripcord Records Bandcamp. I happen to be friends with the person who owns it, Charlene, and she's been amazing. She's going to help us get that out to the world.
Are you laying drums?
So unfortunately, just time-wise, budget-wise, where we're at in life, we're using tracks that we've made in the past. So I do have a song on there from a previous band I was in. I actually have 2.
That's so cool, dude.
So that'll be fun. But
man.
Don Cardenas from the amazing Comics and Coffee Metal podcast, I asked him if, since he was doing a pinup in the book, could he just contribute a song that he made? He's like, no. I'm going to do a whole new song. I'm going to do the theme song. It's going to be about werewolves. So we will have a brand new song debuting on the soundtrack.
Let's go.
I haven't
dude.
even heard it yet. So, again, you do this long enough, you make amazing friends and you make relationships. And again, I just wanted him to contribute from some awesome music he's already made.
Dude.
And he was like, no, I'm going to do that. So
how's that feel, being someone who's played music most of your life, having a comic about music and having a freaking soundtrack to it? Dude, this is the first time I've ever heard of that.
And I have a couple other buddies who are doing it. And yeah, to be honest with you, I was kind of jealous. And I'm like, you know what? I got some music. I'm going to make my own soundtrack. But again, of course, where I'm at in life and to be able to, go into a recording studio and everything probably wasn't going to happen. But teaming up with awesome people who are currently in bands and making new music, and I said, you know what, let's kind of team up together. At least, even if it's not all brand new songs, let's show what our talents are outside of the comics world. And it's cool to me.
Does the music line up with the reading? Like while you're reading, does it set the tone pretty good?
I wouldn't say so. I definitely think I have other music in mind when I kind of write the stories that would, if it ever got animated or something, would definitely fit in. I think any of the music could fit into certain scenes, but we definitely didn't plan it out that much. But maybe for the next issue.
Dude, still really cool that you got an OST for it. I mean, I don't think many people could even say that.
Yeah, sometimes I kind of talk down about myself, and then my wife reminds me, well, even though you maybe didn't reach all your goals as a drummer, like most of the planet can't even play an instrument, so you should be pretty proud. I'm like, oh, thanks, wife. Sometimes she's nice to me. But yeah, so then we had Dave Jordan, who's also contributing to the soundtrack. He did this awesome, if you're familiar with 2 metal bands, he kind of made us an alternative logo. I hired him to do that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which I thought this is like one of my favorite parts of the whole project. I was like, Dave, can you do one of those like doom metal logos where you can't really read it? And he's like, yeah, no problem.
I got you, man.
And so that's a free sticker for everybody. We've already unlocked that a long time ago. And then of course we've already unlocked the bigger book, more story, expanding the universe. We can continue the series on now thanks to so many amazing people. And that's it in a nutshell. Again, a lot of my old books from the last 12 years are in there, so it's always cool when new people back your book and then they like it so much they're like, I'm gonna buy your entire catalog, like here's 10 books. And I'm like, wow, you put a lot of faith in me. I hope I can live up to that.
Dude, that's so awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a great feeling. You do this long enough, you have your ups and downs. Not everyone's gonna meet their financial goals. We just had a Kickstarter late last year that did not meet its goal. And it's easy to get down at those times, but then if you work hard enough, this is definitely a field where, if you're a decent person, you put out a good product, you work hard, you can have your book on the shelves. I have two shops around the country that carry our books. We have a bunch around the city of Chicago as well.
Dude,
I may not be in every shop, I may not be across the world, but I think that's really cool.
No, that is awesome, man.
I'm not going to have my movie at the Sony Theater. I'm not going to have my music probably.
You got a movie?
That's fine. I'm just saying, for example.
I was like, dude, what else do you have going on?
No, this is it. No, I've given up everything else.
I've given up all my dreams for this one. No, I get it, dude. That is so cool, man. I think you have a really awesome project here. I was stoked when we were able to link up a date to get together and talk about it. And for me, when I try to do this type of interview, I try to stay blind to it, So I more or less backed you because I thought you was an awesome individual. Just talking to you, I really liked the vibe. So I didn't actually dive into all the details until this morning because I like to read everything right before the interview to be as fresh as humanly possible. Because,
Nice.
If I read it a week ago, I don't know. For me, it like starts fermenting. Then I start getting off track.
I get it. There's a lot of noise in the world, and it's hard to. I know I do. Sometimes I even have to go back and reread my own stuff so I remember what it said.
So, just diving into it and learning a lot of this stuff off the rip too. It's so awesome. And if I had the chance, I'd back it again. Honestly, we're nearing up the ending hours of the campaign. So for anyone that is watching who's like right on the cusp of wanting to back it and not, what would you say to kind of push them over that edge?
Well, if we haven't sold you on it yet, I mean, if you're a fan of music themed comics, Scott Pilgrim, one that really influenced me, Doom Boy, I mentioned Chuck Beebe's Death Metal, Dave Chisholm's Chasing the Bird. There's all these amazing comics. I don't know if we'll live up to that, but Dan and I sure are going to try. Again, we have the background in both comics and music now. I think we're going to make a fun book, even though these themes can be very heavy, dark magic and heavy metal and all that. I think I approach comics. I want people to leave, with some hope and some heart. So I think that's where I'm going with it. It started out as kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke about if Manowar, was the biggest band in the world. I mentioned the logo. But really, as I wrote it, I realized that it was really a Ronnie James Dio tribute. I got really big into Dio in my late 30s.
That's awesome.
Missed out on him when I was younger. So I really, if you're a fan of that and his lyrics, we're going to try to pull the lore of heavy metal. I mean, people pull from, J.R.R. Tolkien and Stephen King. They try to a Cthulhu lore. People, those are all great things. But I'm like, you know what? Heavy metal has its own lore and history. These songs are amazing. They tell amazing stories.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I'm not taking word for word and reenacting it, but I am going to try to, now that the book is expanded, pull some of the elements. So if you weren't excited before, I hope that excites you. If you're a fan of that era of heavy metal, I think we can write a good book for somebody.
So you probably because you mentioned Killswitch Engage earlier, you probably really loved when they did Holy Diver, the remake to it.
Yes.
So
that was a great cover, one of the best.
Yeah, dude, I thought they really killed it too. And I really like too the old school metal scene for their music videos. They just used to tell stories. Album covers used to just tell stories. And I think it's cool that you're able to translate that into your own world that's influenced by different metal scenes and different music scenes and ultimately Black Sabbath painting the picture the entire way. So I got to ask you, do you like Ronnie or Ozzy better?
So I did not give Ronnie James Dio, Black Sabbath, a fair shake until I was well into my 30s. I actually had, I mentioned it before, Don Cardenas does an amazing podcast called Comics, Coffee, Metal. He did a deep dive into Dio's era. And I said, okay, I've listened to some, but, I like Dio, his hits on the radio, whatever you want to say. He's obviously an amazing musician, but, again, Ozzy. I mean, Ozzy is Black Sabbath, right?
Yeah.
That's the songs we know. And then I'll be honest, I'm not, this is not hyperbole. I fell in love with it. I listen to it probably about once a week now. I love, especially the album Heaven and Hell is really the one I get stuck on.
Yeah. Yep.
It was a different band. They probably should have, maybe it's their choice, but they probably should have called it as they did later. I think they called it Heaven and Hell or 13, whatever the name change was. They probably should have said this isn't Black Sabbath because it was Dio, but Dio, he doesn't get, even though he gets a ton of credit, he does not get enough credit. He was an amazing musician, so talented. And I think, again, part of that, I liked kind of coming to that later in life because, again, when I was younger, I don't think I was closed-minded. I listened to a lot of different kinds of music. I love, Elton John and the Talking Heads, but I was really into metal, and I really was kind of, gave a side eye to the over-the-top metal, the high-pitched vocals. I kind of said, oh, they're funny. I like Holy Diver and I like Rainbow in the Dark, but
it's so hard to sing like that, dude.
I know.
It's so hard.
Well, that's the thing. You realize, and you're like, it took me a long time, unfortunately. And I was like, oh my God, these people are actually amazing. Like I used to tease about Bruce Dickinson, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm being the ignorant one. He is an amazing talent. He's on that voice. He can run around the stage and sing.
They got a freaking jet for a reason, dude.
I can't even walk up the stairs without being winded. And this guy's like, doing backflip, whatever. These people are amazing. They're talented musicians. Yes, maybe they lean towards the side of metal that was a little bit more theatrical and over the top. And, when I was younger, it was like, oh no, you got to wear like spikes on your arms and be, and then I realized, you're being closed-minded to an amazing part of music. And again, that's kind of some of the impetus of this book is keep an open mind. Don't be so into what you're into that you don't give other things at least a fair shake, because you're missing out on stuff. And boy, I missed out on 25 years or so. I could have been listening to Ronnie James Dio and really appreciating more than just what they play on the radio.
Man, that's awesome. I've had a really awesome time breaking down your newest Kickstarter and just everything in between, like what makes you tick as a comic creator, self-publishing your own comics. We've nailed it all. Is there anything else before we end that you'd want to tell anyone listening about, what you've done or what you plan to do?
Yeah, I mean, I've had some success. We've had some ups and downs in our first year and a half here, but this is really just an amazing feeling. I'm so grateful that people are excited about this book. I had a feeling that it might be a quote unquote easy sell just based on the subject, but you never know. You never know how these things are going to go. So we have big plans for our book Depowered is still coming out. Connie and CPS is going to have more stories. I'm trying to be more realistic, but I'm not also interested in slowing down. I want to get these stories out there with my amazing friends and co-creators that are making these books with me. I'm just so grateful to be in this position. So I hope people give it a chance. If you don't, at least go out and listen to the music of Ronnie James Dio. At least take that away.
And I got to admit too, I think the initials of CPS is pretty clever too. When you said it again, it just clicked what they are and then what they intend. So that was pretty clever as well. But we came to my favorite part of the podcast, believe it or not. We are nearing the end, and I always enjoy this part the most. I love asking any sort of indie comic creator what type of advice they would have for anyone starting out, anyone who's kind of struggling to get off the ground or get their foot in the door. What advice would you tell them to kind of help them push through?
Well, my advice usually to new creators, even seasoned creators, my advice is always set realistic goals. As a social worker, I would never tell anybody don't shoot for the moon, don't have dreams. I'm saying if your only goal when you sit down at the computer to type your script is to write for Marvel Comics, it's probably not going to happen. That's not me being a naysayer. That's me saying if your goal when you sit down to write is to make comics, you can do that. You, like I said, you can have your book on shelves. You can do exactly what I'm doing. Maybe to you, it doesn't seem like a lot to have 250 backers, but to me, that's an amazing feeling to get this book out to the most people I've ever had buy a single issue ever. You can, if you work hard and you're consistent, you can have a nice little niche for yourself in this community. So don't set your goals only to do certain things. I only want to do a Kickstarter if I make $10,000. I only want to write if I can write Batman. That's probably not going to happen for most of us. So if you hone in on that, you won't have fun. You'll miss things along the way because you'll be so focused on an end goal that's not attainable that you're missing a lot of things. So slow down, write a short story, then write a single issue, then write a mini series, and enjoy every second of it, because the next thing you know, it'll be 12 years later, you'll be an old man like me, and you'll be scrambling to try and figure out what kind of career you're going to have. So don't do that.
Hey, well, definitely appreciate the advice. I'm excited to get my hands on this. You said issues are going to be mailing out as at a minimum around August, maybe sooner. So stay tuned if you guys are backing it. We have a few hours left. So by the time you watch this, you'll have just a few hours to back it. There are other ways to get the issue, though, you said, if they missed the campaign, correct?
Absolutely. We are Part-Time Comics with an X at the end instead of a CS. You can Google that and you will find us on Instagram, Linktree, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. We're on all the majors. You can find us there. Linktree is usually the best because that leads to our web store, our crowdfunding, and all our social medias are all in that same spot. So Linktree /Part-Time Comics. is where I would go. But
and we got a question from the audience: are any of those issues going to be signed? I'm curious about that as well.
I typically don't, just because it can be hard to, if I have artists in different places. But if people do want them, I'll add that into the backer survey at the end. I'll ask people if they want them to be signed or not. I feel like, you know, that defames the product, and it won't be a 10.0. So when you try to sell it on eBay, you're not going to get as much money. But if you want my signature to ruin the value of the book, I'm happy to put it on there.
We got to save the man's wrist so he can drum out some beats. So with that being said, I really appreciate everyone that stopped by for the live stream. We're also going to be editing this post-production and cleaning it up and then putting it as a YouTube video in itself, so that way it's nice and clean. With that being said, big shout out to Jon for coming on to the show, breaking down the latest Kickstarter for Drumsticks of Doom issue number 1. And everything else that goes into being an indie comic creator. With that being said, guys, this is your Capes Crusader, Cody, and we're keeping it geekly.